Barbara Kickham, Precinct 2. I was just wondering, did we consider at all any alternative energy to supplement the natural gas, switch to natural gas, like rooftop solar or ground source heat pumps? Do we, as a supplement even?
Response, Mr. Cox, Superintendent of Buildings, Bob Cox.
What we've designed is systems that are something that are affordable and not only to run, but to operate. Looking at geothermal, we found that it's a very expensive process and a long payback, so we really didn't go in that direction. So the one thing we did do is change the primary fuel at Spring Street from electric to gas, and we expect to see some considerable savings there. And I would assume savings over Patton as well with a more efficient system. And as was mentioned earlier, both of these systems are original. Patton, 1949, the building was built, and it still has the original system. Boilers were replaced in the 80s, early 80s. Spring Street, by and large, it's all the original electric equipment that was in there from 1967.
Further questions or comments? Yes, sir, Mr. Moss. You're sitting in that section, Brian, where the lighting is really bad, so I can only see shadows.
Bryan Moss, Precinct 8. I just wanted to go along with the previous comment that if we've noticed what's been going on around us, last time I spoke, it was before the Paris conference, which is the climate change conference, and during that conference, they had actually changed their target for the amount of temperature rise where catastrophic climate change would go from 2 degrees. They've lowered it to 1.5 degrees Celsius, and we are already at 1 degree Celsius. So there has been some urgency out of this Paris conference that just happened to move away from fossil fuels to renewable energy. What we can see in our own state is we have, even at UMass Amherst this week, the students are sitting in at their administrative offices calling for fossil fuel divestment from all fossil fuels. Last time I spoke, UMass had not divested from anything. They've already divested from coal, given that coal companies are going bankrupt and there's going to be a loss there. And they're already looking at divestment from the other fossil fuels as well. Also, since I last spoke, the IPCC Fifth Assessment Report had shown that sea level rise by the end of the century was estimated at 3 feet. Since then, research from UMass Amherst has shown that has doubled. That estimate has doubled and is now at 6 feet is the estimate for sea level rise by the end of the century. So from that, there's a necessity to keep fossil fuels in the ground. Majority of the fossil fuels in the ground. So natural gas is not a bridge fuel. Natural gas is a bridge to nowhere. So given some of those significant changes and the urgency at the local level where we need to be looking for changing and looking at renewable energy projects, could we be looking at cost estimates for some of these at the longer term, where when we pay for natural gas, our money flows out of state and down to Texas, where the natural gas companies are. So even though we're putting in systems that are natural gas based, we are pretty much hooked in and will be addicted to fossil fuels for the foreseeable future. So especially when we're talking about our kids and the institutions that they're going to, we want to be stewards of their future, giving them a livable planet, and therefore looking at alternatives which over the long term will actually save us money. We'll be keeping the money local if we put solar on. There could be some upfront costs, but sometimes you can actually get companies to install solar and sell for low rates of electricity to us, as well as geothermal might be upfront costs, but we also keep that money local going forward. So I just wanted to mention that some of these costs that we're going to put out, there could be a cost for that natural gas for the next foreseeable future, half a century. And as some of those statistics I told about before will be increasing the cost of natural gas and the volatility going into the future. So given all of that, my question would be, can we get a total cost estimate over the life of the system that would look at the total cost for these systems, such as rooftop solar to offset the electric cost, or geothermal heat pumps, or maybe cold air sourced heat pumps, if not for the total building, but some of the modular units that are off to the side, some of the modular classrooms. So I guess that's my question. Can we actually get that, even approving this article, or is that something that we could get? Thank you.
Response, Mr. Morgado?
The answer to that would be no. We have got bids in hand. We opened bids. We've got 2 contractors lined up, ready to go. It's a project being done within the budget that we initially proposed. It's being done with technologies that are modern, state-of-the-art, but it's technologies that we know and use in our other buildings. And this project is designed to provide service to the buildings in order to meet the educational function that these buildings are designed to attain. So we're ready to go. This bid is live. If the town meeting wants to redesign the project, we can redesign it. The cost will be higher, and this project will not get accomplished in the time period that we currently have projected.
Further questions or comments regarding Article 1? Mr. Moss, you want to follow up?
Would it make sense in the future, given we're at town meeting at this point, so what would we need to do in the future? Would it make sense to have like an energy committee that would be looking at our carbon footprint for the whole of the town, so that we actually have an inventory of how much carbon we produce and how much we'd be saving going from like electric to natural gas? Maybe a consideration that an energy committee would take into account before it would get to town meeting. Would that be something we should pursue in order to get this these issues like these addressed earlier? Thank you.
Response?
I think the guiding principle, as I understand it during my tenure as town manager, is to be as effective as we possibly can. That means looking at projects that can be done for a reasonable final cost, that provide a return of investment, that provides great utility to the community, and to get it all done on time and under budget. That's pretty much the marching orders that I've had since I've been town manager. If we're going to detour from that and not look at these projects in economic terms, then that's a philosophical change that's going to have to be discussed in some fashion, and a policy change. We design projects and we do projects using the current best practices that are available to us. We don't do leading edge things. We do things that are pretty much tried and true, that have demonstrated to provide the effective results that we seek. Now, when we do, for instance, when we did the Sherwood School, we did do a little innovation there relative to some passive solar, and certainly when the Beal replacement is done, we'll be considering that as part of the design question, because the way the MSBA program is structured, there's additional reimbursement made available to attain those kinds and to seek out and reach for those kinds of results. But when we're replacing in kind, pretty much our marching orders is get it done fast, get it done effectively, do it at the lowest possible cost, looking at the cost of getting the project done initially, and obviously looking at life cycle based upon the current technologies that we're all familiar with that are performed in this building, for instance, very effectively.